Good morning, Kitchissippi. It is Saturday, October the 18th. This is a video version of the 453rd Kitchissippi Weekly Ward Newsletter. There is lots more information about all the topics that we'll discuss in the weekly email newsletter, to which you can subscribe at kitchissippiward.ca. I'm going to be hosting my next pop-up office hours on October the 28th at the Dovercourt Recreation Centre. That's at 411 Dovercourt Avenue from 9:30 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. Pop-ups are an opportunity to come by, chat with me anytime during those hours without appointment about whatever is on your mind. The Committee of Adjustment is next going to meet on October the 22nd. They have a single application on the agenda for our ward. That is for a proposed two-story detached home at 243 Belford. The variances they're seeking are to allow a front-facing garage and a driveway located between the front wall of the residence and the street, and also looking for increased driveway width. The city planning staff comments are now in. They have expressed concerns, no surprise there, about the deviation from the streetscape character analysis. There is another meeting on the schedule now for November the 5th for the Committee of Adjustment Panel 1. There are no Kitchissippi applications on that agenda. One last reminder, on October the 20th, the city is hosting an open house from 5:30 until 7:30 p.m. to take a look at the Berkley, Dominion, and Tay integrated renewal project. So rebuilding the street, putting in new pipes. There will be plans proposed that incorporate traffic calming, sidewalks. You can take a look at all of those during a drop-in open house that is going to be held on October the 20th from 5:30 until 7:30 p.m. at the Dovercourt Recreation Centre. I have a co-hosted event with Enviro Center and the city on October the 27th. Registration is required from 6:30 until 7:30 p.m. To take a look at how to extend your winter cycling season. The session will feature an experienced cyclist who can talk about four-season cycling, pass on some tips and tricks if you do want to extend your cycling season once the cold weather hits. The goal for the workshop is to help riders discover opportunities to cycle year-round. I have a link in the newsletter from which you can find more information. The Parkdale United Church is hosting its annual Christmas bazaar on November the 1st. That will be held from 9 a.m. until 12 p.m. at the church at 429 Parkdale. They'll have baking, soups, crafts, knitting, antiques and collectibles, books, plants, attic treasures, a whole lot more. Sales are cash only. First Unitarian is hosting its fall fair on November the 15th. They're seeking donations for that. The fall fair is going to be held on November the 15th from 9:30 until 2 p.m. They're going to have a great selection of gifts, clothing, books, jewelry, toys, all the usual things. Debit and credit cards are accepted. And new this year, River Parkway Children's Center, which is at 40 Cleary, is hosting a children's clothing sale. That one is cash or check payment only. And if you're decluttering, First Unitarian is looking for your donations of all of those types of craft fair, fall bazaar goods. I have much more information in the newsletter about what they're looking for, but kids and teen clothing, small appliances, puzzles, sports and camping gear, flea market goods, baking and preserves as well, movies, all that good stuff. I do have a link in the newsletter to outline what folks can and can't donate to that fall bazaar. This is a little bit last notice. I apologize for that. The Kichi Sibi Winter Trail is hosting a fundraiser evening on October the 21st. They're celebrating their 10th anniversary. Happy anniversary, Groomer Dave and all. The tickets are available through a link that's in the newsletter on Eventbrite. It's going to be held at Mill Street Brew Pub from 5 until 8 p.m. I'm sure I'll have an opportunity to pop in there and wish everyone well. Happy anniversary, Kichi Sibi Winter Trail. I can't believe it's been 10 years. I have instructions in the newsletter on how you can donate if you want to make a more substantial donation to that absolute jewel in our ward. The Bike Ottawa annual general meeting is going to be held this year at Bayview Yards. That will be on October the 26th at 1:30 p.m. The doors will open at 12:30 p.m. There is a guest speaker, Marvin Macareg, who is going to talk about building suburban bike culture, reflections from Scarborough. There will be workshops and discussions as part of the AGM as well. I'm sure I will see many of you there. All Saints Westboro is hosting its bazaar on November the 15th. That's at 347 Richmond Road. It'll be held from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. There are going to be crafts, jams, one-of-a-kind treasures, children's secret shopping, henna tattoos, and more. Morning coffees and treat and a delicious lunch will be served. For more information, visit the link that I have put in the newsletter. And then another reminder that Ottawa Friends of Tibet is holding a festival and fundraiser on October the 25th. That's going to be at First Unitarian Congregation, 30 Cleary Avenue, from 3:30 until 7 p.m. for the taste of Tibetan food, the experience of Tibetan music and dance, cultural workshops, silent auction, and bazaar. You can check out the details at the link in the newsletter. We have a very busy couple of weeks of committee meetings coming up. On October the 21st, the Environment and Climate Change Committee is going to be meeting. They have a fairly substantial agenda. There's going to be an update on the Solid Waste Master Plan and a proposal for the Ottawa Climate Ready Strategy. The Master Plan is an update of how we are doing in terms of diverting waste out of the Trail Road landfill. It bears mentioning again that is running out of space, and the city has a strategy to try to extend that life while we look for other solutions. There's numbers in the report on how we're doing with multi-residential diversion, which is really just kind of getting underway after its first year. So that's going to be an important report to take a look at if you are concerned about the future of waste in the city. The city, the Ottawa Climate, or the Climate Ready Ottawa strategy is a really important document that talks about how Ottawa is going to deal with climate change. I know in the past week or so there have been headlines. We are going to bust through 1.5 degrees of global warming. It looks like the death of the coral reefs is irreversible. It is going to mean wilder weather, much more unpredictable weather patterns here in Ottawa in the years to come, and the city needs to get ready. I won't get into all of the details of that report in this video, but it does focus on 7 key areas: flood preparedness, a cooling strategy for the city, community climate preparedness, critical infrastructure protection, climate-ready infrastructure, tree and natural asset management, and extreme weather preparedness. So take a look at that report to see how city staff are proposing that we would get ready for the much more unpredictable and probably extreme weather that will be coming to Ottawa in the coming years. And then it's also interesting, there is a response to an inquiry that was made by Councillor Brockington some time ago about the nature and number of collisions that are occurring where I'm standing, which is at the corner of Carling and Kirkwood. I highlight the response to the inquiry, but it's a little bit short on details. I think, as residents know, the intersection was recently significantly changed here on the north side of the Queensway. City staff have said it's too soon to talk about what the dynamics of collisions might be in light of those very recent changes, and staff have further asserted that trying to understand what's happening on the south side of the Queensway is equally problematic, given that changes here on the north side likely have an impact. So not a lot of juicy information in that response to inquiry, but I did want to highlight it for residents. And then City Council is going to meet on October the 22nd. I think it's a relatively workaday agenda of uncontentious approvals for the work that the committees have been doing for the past couple of weeks. That will include a recommendation by the Built Heritage Committee not to pursue a Heritage Conservation District designation for Wellington West. I have had a chance to talk to stakeholders now, and I support that recommendation. I think the headline item is going to be a motion that will come from Councillors Tierney and Hubley, writing to encourage the city to write to the province province, asking that if the province does eliminate automated speed enforcement cameras, that we at least be allowed to keep those in school zones. There are some other elements of the motion as well, such as asking the province for a phase out of automated speed enforcement cameras time, and also requesting funding from the province to replace the speed cameras with other mitigating speed control measures. There's nothing in the motion that is particularly problematic. I do think it's a little bit milquetoast in light of what some municipalities have been doing in terms of opposing outright the elimination of automated speed enforcement cameras, but that is the motion that will be in front of us on next Wednesday. The Public Works and Infrastructure Committee is going to meet the next day on October the 23rd. Again, I think this one is a relatively uncontentious agenda. They're going to they're going to consider the statement of work for a new environmental assessment for Merivale Road running from Baseline to Slack. The Transportation Master Plan calls for continuous bus lanes on Merivale in that geography. The statement of work would set out the parameters for doing an environmental assessment of what that project would actually look like. I think it's a really interesting and exciting opportunity to get active transportation, cycling and pedestrian facilities on what is currently a very unfriendly Merivale Road. So this is a very early step in creating the statement of work for the environmental assessment, but I do think that they're heading in the right direction, keeping in mind that Baseline will have bus rapid transit in the median, so it will take a look at how to link those continuous bus lanes up with that key artery as well. There is also a sewer rebuild that's going to be coming up on Merivale, which would be a great opportunity to implement any of the changes to the street configuration that could be identified through the environmental assessment. And then there is a second piece around an environmental assessment, this one for the Brian Coburn extension that is on the table. They did an environmental assessment about a corridor, Brian Coburn in the East End, that was in 2024. Since then, the city and the NCC have negotiated a corridor with which the NCC can agree. The environmental assessment needs to be modified in light of that agreement, that compromise routing, and so this would be a step towards amending the environmental assessment. And then I'm really sorry, the piece that I spoke about, the inquiry, that inquiry with respect to the corner of Kirkwood and Carling here is actually on the agenda of the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee. The inquiry from Councillor Brockington that's going to be brought to the Environment and Climate Change Committee is actually one with respect to localized flooding on Fisher after a melt and then rain. There was a serious impact on Fisher of water that was running off of the experimental farm. You can read staff's response to Councillor Brockington's inquiry on the agenda of that committee. And then finally, the Community Services Committee is going to meet on October the 28th. They have an agenda that I haven't been able to look at yet, but one of the key items that's on that agenda is a 2025 to 2030 older adult plan. I have not had a chance to look at that in any depth, but I do note that they are, at least after a quick scan, there is some mention about activity around naturally occurring retirement communities. We call them NORCs. NORCs are buildings or communities such as, and Botanica, Metropole, Westboro Station come to mind, where a lot of the buyers in those buildings tend to be older. There are often a few individuals in those buildings who take on a lot of the labor of addressing care and activities, addressing isolation in those buildings. I'm really pleased to see on first scan that the older adult plan recognizes the existence of those NORCs and talks about how the city might help. I believe that there is a really strong municipal role in supporting those individuals in those buildings who take on so much of the labor of addressing isolation in those buildings. We can help the helpers. That is, there is also what looks to be an important report on recreation funding and facility access for volunteer groups. I'll take a look at that in the coming days. It doesn't look earth-shattering, but many of you are involved with various different recreation associations providing programming in partnership with the city, and I know you'll want to take a look at that. Kitchissippi, that is the full newsletter this week. Thank you for watching.